Thanks for joining me on the Winning All News. We begin with 2023 Internal Stakeholders Forum and Pastors Induction Course, Batch 129th. The Evangelical Church Winning All ECWA held its 11th Internal Stakeholders Forum on Zero Tolerance for Fraud in ECWA on the 30th of June 2023 with the theme Effective Leadership Panacea for Controlling Greed and Corruption in ECWA at the ECWA Headquarters International Conference Hall, Jos Plateau State. According to Mrs. Esther Daniel, the stakeholders include the ECWA Executive, District Church Council heads, heads of department in ECWA, and heads of institutions, amongst others.
The Stakeholder Forum is a forum where stakeholders within the ECWA meet to discuss key things, most especially things that have to do with fraud. That is zero tolerance. This is a forum where you have the DCC, some of the DCC executive, where you have the ECWA executives are part of it. You have accountants, secretaries, you have fellowship leaders that are also part of ECWA. They are all stakeholders in this forum. It's a forum whereby it is expected that the participants in this forum will step down lessons that they have learned during this forum. And this year we are looking at tolerance, effectiveness, and fraud with greed and corruption, whereby digital equipment, modern techniques, values can be used to handle crime, to handle corruption, and to see that corruption is minimized in the church, whereby we will have equipment that our staff, our members in different aspects of ECWA can use, and then the aspect of fraud can be eliminated or reduced in the church.
The ECWA president, Reverend Dr. Stephen Panya Baba, while speaking at the forum, says what builds or destroys any form of organization is the staff view of greed and corruption. Leaders whose desires are selfish lead to corruption that undermines the unity and peace of the organization. He added that it is the responsibility of institutional authorities to ensure and control greed and corruption for the growth of any organization through effective leadership that guarantees success. He enumerated that greed and corruption are the major issues many nations and organizations are battling with, and ECWA is not an exception, with an established institution with various departments. The poor functionality of these departments is majorly caused by the compromise of basic Christian principles of godliness, faithfulness, truth, and transparency. He stated that some of the major challenges confronting ECWA that hinder effectiveness in leadership are lack of integrity and character. Others who are chosen because of their track records are swayed away by overwhelming challenges or because of a deliberate act to compromise their morality for selfishness. Competition among staff also leads to greed and corruption. Leaders who are intoxicated with power do not consider the views of their subordinates, and people working with such leaders out of bitterness commit crimes to implicate their leaders. Hence, to have an effective leader that will fight greed and corruption, he must have passion for growth, be bold to confront issues, practice the principles and rules of law, and must fear and love God and his fellow workers. The ECWA General Secretary, Reverend Ayuba Ashishe, who made a paper presentation on effective leadership and panacea for controlling greed and corruption in ECWA, said his heart bleeds to hear that greed and corruption are found in ECWA, the Church of God. It is a menace existing in the church, and the time to tackle this issue is now and must start with the leaders who are expected to show the way. He enumerated that this forum has effectively reduced the rate of greed and corruption in ECWA.
A typical human being needs to be put on toes. And refresher courses or seminars such as these are meant to keep us on toes. I am sure there has been tremendous progress on this issue of corruption and greed. Every year as we do this, we witness tremendous success. And we cannot call this a waste. There has been a lot of improvement.
Continuing, he mentioned some qualities that can aid effective leadership, such as the fear of God, vision and focus, discipline, wisdom, integrity, courage, humility, diplomacy, inspiration, and accountability. And every leader must strive to possess these qualities.
An effective leadership, a panacea to curtailing corruption, and greed. You know, these two conjoined evil, conjoined twins, signifying evil in ECWA have actually been a big problem for us. So the summary of that paper is, how do we curtail this menace? And I outlined certain things that we can actually follow, and they will become means towards curtailing all of those things. Number one, you need to know why you are called. You even need to know why you are in the ministry. And you need to ask yourself, is your ministry impacting humanity and promoting the ideals of ECWA? Failure to ask yourself these self-cross-examining questions leads you to becoming a victim of corruption and greed. So those were the summary of the paper.
He mentioned some qualities that can aid effective leadership, and lastly, he urged leaders to strive to pursue holiness, transparency, honesty, objectivity, and accountability in all their actions as leaders. Trustee Moses Waidembo, while talking on the theme, described effective leadership as the ability to successfully influence and support a team or group of people devoid of greed, corruption, or nepotism, amongst others, and gave a brief analysis of the said topic.
You know, I try as much as possible to come up with a style of leadership. I look at, you know, man generally, if you look at the scriptures, you know, is full of ideas and wisdom, yet very, very difficult to deal with. That is a man for you. And of course, I try as much as possible to come up also with a personality trait of a man. Because, you know, the reason why I came up with the personality traits is to ensure that, you know the kind of person you are staying with or you are living with, so that, you know, you'll be able to tolerate him. Because if you don't know who he is by personality trait, you will not be able to help him.
Further, he enumerated some qualities of an effective leader.
Ideas on how, you know, effective a leader can be. We know that, you know, certainly by personality trait, God has made us differently. We are people of different personalities, we are people of different disposition, and we behave differently. So there are some people that, you know, try to exhibit autocratic style of leadership in such a way that, you know, they try to dominate others, they try to suppress others, to the extent that their subordinates cannot do anything. So in that kind of situation, how do you get rid of, you know, that kind of autocratic style of leadership, you know, in a given situation like that of ECWA? The only thing is to introduce an effective style of leadership, whereby, you know, you live a life devoid of greed, devoid of corruption, and so on. And I took time, you know, to highlight so many things that will really help us overcome these problems, because God has made us differently. And, you know, if you are not decent, certainly you will not be able to lead in most cases. And I emphasize so much on humility. You know, if you don't humble yourself, just like Jesus Christ did, you will not be a very effective leader. Jesus Christ did it by washing the feet of his own disciples. So if you really want to be an effective leader, you must humble yourself. You must do away with pride. And also you'll be able to carry everybody along, so that at least, you know, whatever you will do, you know, you will do it to the glory of God.
Other qualities of an effective leader, according to him, include the leader must have the art of listening, the ability to absorb criticism, contentment, patience and perseverance, commitment to lay down rules, prayerfulness, forgiveness, stand by the vision of the organization, amongst others. He admonished all ECWA leaders to act in the best interests of ECWA by exposing corrupt and greedy leaders, and that the internal control system should be strengthened to reduce the rate of greed and corruption in the system. Regular staff transfer should be encouraged, and unpleasant disciplinary measures should be taken against those found guilty of greed and corruption to serve as a deterrent to others. He rounded up by saying ECWA is our home, and together we can build a better future for ourselves and our children if we live a life free of greed and corruption. The ECWA Director of Audit, Mr. Olusegun S. Ayeribe, presented a paper titled Fraud Risk Management, providing insight into fraud prevention, detection and response. fraud risk management is a process of understanding and managing fraud risks that the organization is certainly exposed to. Fraud and poor governance are serious risks for all organizations. Fraud is one of the major issues that cripple organizations and institutions. Therefore, methods to curtail this menace are used. Fraud can be detected by preventing fraudsters from obtaining money or property through false means by using the technology system and machines. According to him, good fraud risk management can be achieved by a strong internal control system, frequent forensic audit, and abiding by statutory and regulatory laws. Therefore, ECWA should make use of this opportunity of using technology to reduce fraud.
The time has come for us to go digital. We cannot continue to do again because if one cannot really be a going concern, when concern is better, ECWA will exist in perpetuity. If ECWA should exist in perpetuity, we have to kind of change our system of auditing and detecting fraud so that we are not called on our guards. When talking about regression analysis, these are things you notice in mathematics. They kind of build this up and put it in the system in such that it will help the detection of fraud along the line.
Some individuals indicated that the use of technology is a sure way to curtail fraud, seeing its effectiveness.
The world itself has gone digital. And if you say you will live your life without this technology, you are actually living in the past. You are taking yourself 50 years back. And therefore, technology, like the paper the audit director just presented, he outlined certain nuggets through which this fraud can be electronically, digitally, and technologically detected.
As world is changing, even the way to cope all these evil things, we will employ the use of technology there too.
Mr. Stephen also noted that if ECWA can take the necessary measures, greed and corruption will be reduced to the barest minimum.
The issue of corruption, fraud, is not only in the world, is entering into the church. And the way to curb this is to use technology. Since the world is going technology, if you look at what is happening in the world now, there are so many cybercrime that is going on. So for you to curb all these things, you must know technology very well. So use technology, and then again, the management too should try to do what is right at the right time. Make sure if somebody is caught with any evil things, you dispense justice immediately, because justice delayed is justice denied.
Again, the Evangelical Church Winning All ECWA in the Department of Church-Related Ministries headed by Reverend Benjamin Nasara organized a pastor's induction course from the 3rd to 14th of July 2023 at the ECWA Headquarters Church, Jos Plateau State. These induction courses are done in batches and is expected to run for the period of 2 weeks. This is the 139th batch conducted so far. The program will host various resource persons that will discuss topics like pastoral ethics and etiquettes, the pastor and his pulpit, emotional intelligence, the role of pastor's wife in ministry, the pastor and fundamental ministry, the pastor and protocol practices in ministry, amongst many other topics. It is a refresher course to refresh the minds and activities of pastors in service. The ECWA President, Reverend Dr. Stephen Panya Baba, on behalf of the ECWA Executive, welcomed all the participants and thanked God for granting them safety from their various places of calling and ministry. The President also presented a paper titled ECWA Monuments and Missions Challenge. ECWA's vision is to promote and sustain the godly sacrificial legacy of our founding fathers and forefathers through the establishment or renovation of ECWA missions and historical. He added that this monument will serve as a mark of respect to our courageous founding fathers who all knew they were likely coming to die in Sudan but went on with the journey.
Do you know
that many missionaries in the past, when they pack their things in coffins. Because they were prepared and they knew that once they went out, they were not coming back again alive. They used to pack their things in coffins. That was the level of sacrifice that they made to bring us the gospel.
Furthermore, he expressed the significance of this monument to ECWA.
ECWA historical monument will ginger the spirit of young generations and many unborn ECWA members for missions. Today's generation is in great danger of forgetting our missions history and roots, and the great sacrifice made by our founding fathers and pioneer missionaries in bringing us the gospel. If developed, the ECWA Missions Historical Monument will serve as historical landmarks, research centers for visiting and indigenous theologians both within and outside, and also as a tourist attraction for the Universal Church.
These centers will contain literatures, brochures, and missions work within ECWA with enough details on how visitors can be part of it by prayer, going, and giving. He further mentioned that ECWA cannot be mentioned without the name of Mrs. Gowans from Canada through her burden to save lives from Christ from the Sudan Interior Mission known as SIM. He mentioned that ECWA has approved that SIM will be taught in both primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions in ECWA as part of the curriculum. Students will have the opportunity to visit this monument. Our pioneer fathers Walter Gowans, Thomas Kent, and Roland Bingham, who despite faced with various challenges came to Nigeria in 1893 with the gospel. ECWA intends to build this monument in Patagi, where the first mission stated, Girku, Bidda, and Egbe, where the pioneers were buried, and millions of naira is needed to renovate and build hospitals in these areas. According to him, the vision was passed to Baba Musa Jibo, who was the first indigenous director of the then African Missionary Society, AMS, later named Evangelical Missionary Society, EMS. The first and longest-serving EMS director, Reverend Dr. Panya Baba, who served for 18 years, transformed the EMS to a golden era where many came to the knowledge of the Word of God, and EMS have continued the legacy of sacrificial service to save many dying souls.
A saved soul is priceless. So priceless that were Jesus to come down to this earth, live and died on the cross of Calvary and shed his sinless blood, if only it was for one soul, he would have still done it. Even if it was for just one soul, he would have still done it.
In conclusion, he encouraged members to send in their financial support to see that this vision becomes a reality. One of the resource persons, Reverend Zakaria Salihu, a former director of church-related ministry, spoke on the pastor and protocol practices in ministry. Reverend Zakaria Salihu stated that the essence of this presentation is to set out a background of protocol practice, to enlighten pastors of what protocol is about and its role in the church, to express how protocol should be addressed in ECWA, and a guide for pastors to use it in the church. He added that protocol has to do with observing rule for proper conduct. The role of protocol in the church is like to salt to season the church in an orderly manner. It can also be seen in God's creation as found in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, where God created the universe and gave the things he made responsibility. Protocol is also seen in protocol of the Trinity, resolving legal disputes, church service, marriage, remarriage, and divorce, amongst many examples given in the Bible. ECWA has a set of rules and regulations that guides ministers' conduct in worship service, ceremony, handling of uniforms, amongst others, and pastors are expected to work according to these given rules. In conclusion, he encouraged pastors to be honest in their conduct and practice and ensure that orderliness is properly observed according to the rules in ECWA and the scripture. And that's all on Winning All News. From all the crew members, have a good weekend.